Hey, it's Ken from Rocket Family KML, and we're going to do our next build. I've actually built this rocket before, so this will be the second time I've built it. First time I only could take still pictures. This time we'll actually be able to do some video of the build itself since we've got the new camera system. It's a fun rocket from Apogee Components. It's called the Apogee Aspire. Let me turn off this light here so the glare goes away. There we go. So it's the Apogee Aspire. It's a real fun rocket build. This is the rocket that can go a mile high or Mach. You just select the type of engine you use, and you can really get this baby cooking off pad. You can see the launches I've done with my other one where I've really got it moving pretty good. Put it up on an I think it was an F50, and it left pretty pretty fast. My camera person about cussed on camera, which was kind of funny. It's a real fun build. It's a real easy build. There is some skill involved in it. We're going to be doing papering of skins. We will be doing fillets on this with fixed epoxy because we are going so fast. We want to get the fins on the rocket really, really good. Some people will actually fiberglass the fins on and the bottom portion of the rocket. I'm trying to limit my weight so I can get my better speeds. Remember, with altitude, weight is okay. A little bit of weight is better than not enough weight because an ounce can make the difference. Momentum will carry the rocket higher if you had that little bit more weight, but too much weight and it's fighting to get it up there. So that's for other videos and educational purposes. So let's go ahead and get this open and let's see how simple this kit actually is to build. All right, here we've got the Aspire laid out. Again, this is Apogee Components Aspire. Real simple rocket. We've got our balsa wood fins. We've got our two ways of running motors. You can run your 24 millimeter motors in a 24 millimeter motor adapter using our rings here in an engine block, or you can just run 29 millimeter motors, which is the diameter of the body tube itself on the inside. We've got a coupler for putting our two body tubes together. I'll be going over the importance of putting the coupler in there and rolling it on the counter to make sure that you have a true straight, no wobble body tube, because this will help your flight dynamics as you start flying the rocket. We've got our nose cone. We've got a large 1/4-inch paper launch lug. We've got our Mylar streamer. I actually ordered a second set of streamers to come with it, so I have quite a few streamers. And we've got our Kevlar. I believe this is 300 Kevlar braid for the streamer attachment. Comes with a nice little, this is a sticker versus a decal that comes with it. If you use the paint scheme that they have here, you'll be able to use your sticker without any issues on it. I actually took mine and stuck it on my launch box just because I like putting stickers. And hey, Estes and everybody else out there that makes these rocket kits, include extra stickers so we can put them on our launch boxes. We love them. They can be little 1-inch, 2-inch stickers. We love it. Just stick it on our launch boxes. Excuse me. So if you use the paint schematic they use here or something similar, you can actually put the decal on it or sticker on it. It won't look so funny. So let's go ahead and do the first thing we should always do after we unbox our kit. All these little small parts that we don't want to get lost. Remember on my video about what's in my build box? Well, here's my little plastic bag, and we're going to put all these little motor rings, Kevlar, launch lug, all these little things that we don't want to lose go into the bag. And then these will go into our build box, which is just a Rubbermaid box that we can throw everything into while we're actually building the rocket. Now you can see that my box isn't quite big enough for the body tubes, so you can buy bigger boxes. This box just, it suits my needs for most of my rockets. I do have some larger ones, a really big one that I can use for my larger builds that I do, like when I did my F with Ds. I could use it for this, but it's a little overkill. So we're going to go ahead and get busy on this. In our instructions, we've got fairly easy to read instructions. They're really, really nice. Goes over the different building methods. We've got our launch lug, fin alignment marking guide, our shock cord anchor. I will epoxy my shock cord anchor in after I glue it in because that helps it be a smoother surface so nothing snags. Also, keep this page because it has your motors and it tells you how high and velocity that you can obtain using said motors. And it's going to vary from rocket to rocket, because I might build this one a little heavier than the last one, or a little lighter than the last one. It might have a little bit better airstream, a little bit better airfoil on the fins. We will be airfoiling our fins. It's very important if you want speed to get your airfoil going. So it's a nice thing to hang on to and keep with your rocket kit. So let's go ahead and get set up, and we'll get ready to do our first part of the build. Alright, we're on first part of the build. So we've got our fins, and we're going to sand them. And since I'm papering them, I'm not too worried about sanding them perfectly smooth or anything like that. The papering of the skin, the fins with the paper, helps give you a better finish on the overall look of the fins. So we're going to go ahead and sand that down a little bit on both sides. And it's always easier if you sand them while they're still in the sheet. I'm just trying to take down, smooth them out a little bit. Flip it over, and this is that block you've seen before in a lot of my videos. It has a trench down the middle. I can set a body tube on that. It also works really good as a sanding block. And we'll sand the other side. Now on this rocket, we're going to be airfoiling the fins. The airfoiling will help increase your speed and velocity, reducing drag, which will give you higher altitudes, faster speeds, and the ability to really get this rocket cooking. So now I'll just pop them out. They do a pretty good job of cutting these things, so normally you really don't have to do much to get them out. Just kind of wiggle them a little bit and they come right out. I always save the sheets that they come out of. I can use that to do a repair job later. I can use it if I ever need to check my thickness or anything like that. Okay, so we're going to be airfoiling this, and by airfoiling, that means we're going to round the top over a little bit larger of a round than we normally do, just a little hook round. We're going to actually taper the round, and then it's going to taper to the tail to give us a lot better of a trailing coming off of it as it travels through the air. So the easiest way that I know to get the proper airfoil is we're going to actually take and do some marks. So I can take my little ruler here and I can mark a couple marks on it, and then that'll give me the angle to do my sanding at. So now I have something that I can hold it in my hand and I can sand it, and I can watch and make sure that I'm sanding it fairly even. And then we're going to actually have a fin that looks just like an airplane wing or a rocket fin with that nice teardrop shape. So we're going to get busy on that, and then I'll show you as soon as I get done doing the marks how we did the marking up here. Alright, so now you can see I've laid out the pattern on these three already, and I've drawn my little lines. These will help me reach the airfoil, and it'll be somewhat equal on all of them. So how do we get these lines laid out? Well, kind of eyeballed it and figured out what I wanted for the bottom. That came out to about 11 millimeters. Then I measured it out and did my 2 marks, and then I'm going to take my ruler and I flip it over and have the cork side up, because that way I can butt the pencil right up to the edge and it's not going to drift. Now this is neat for marking on balsa wood, is I'll drag the pencil across. Now I am pushing down on it, and I go the other way. Instead of drawing back and forth and gouging, I'm going back and forth this way, and that way I don't accidentally dent or gouge my balsa. And you can see I got a pretty dark line there. Alright, now the other side we've set up for about 4.5 to 5 millimeters. So the one side was 11 millimeters and the other side's about 4.5 to 5 millimeters. And we're going to do a mark here. And I've got this hanging over the edge because of the belt, the pocket clip pushes off the edge there, so this way I can keep it even. And we're going to do our second mark. Now we've got our 2 marks, and again we're just going to take our ruler and we're going to line up. Try and be fairly accurate with it. I mean, it doesn't have to be 100%. It's not rocket science, ha ha ha. You just have to be reasonably close to it. So now we've got our layout on our fin, and this is going to tell me where to sand and how to sand. So I'm going to be sanding at a slight angle towards here, and then I'm going to be rounding over the top, and I'll know I've rounded evenly from tip to root edge when I've reached the mark all the way up and down. You can eyeball it sideways and see if you have a high spot to roll, but that way you're not coming way down here in your field, and you're able to have a nice rounded fin and get a good airfoil off of it. So we're going to go ahead and start sanding. We've got some 220 here. Don't need to be really fine with this. And there's all sorts of ways you can sand. You can sand using a pad sander. You can sand using a Dremel. You can sand using a block of wood, and just back and forth. Kind of watch your lines. Some people will go 10 passes one side, 10 passes the other side, and just keep flip-flopping back and forth. I just try and go and make each side look even. And the idea, and we're supporting it with our fingertips. We want to make sure we support that balsa wood so we don't snap it. Until we get that paper skin on, this balsa wood will snap real easy. So we're just going to keep going and working on our airfoil. And I'm not trying to get my edge sharp yet. I'm just trying to work material off to my line. If you accidentally sand your line off a little bit, just redo your line. And we'll just keep working at it until we get it to the airfoil that we like. So I'm going to work on these fins, and we'll come back in just a few minutes. Alright, so I've already got 3 of the fins sanded, and as usual I'm going to go ahead and sand the last one. You can see that they do have a little bit of a taper down here at the bottom for airfoiling and rounded at the top. A little bit more than just rounding the edges like you normally would. So how do I get that? Well, I'm using my sanding block, and you can do this any way you want. If you're going to do this with an electric device, I would suggest trying it on a scrap piece first. Go ahead and get a scrap piece the same size and try and do it first. That way you know whether you're going to goof or not, or if you even want to try it. So you can sand going up and down, or you can sand going back and forth. The whole idea is to start at a slight angle and then work it towards the edge. And you want to keep this edge, your line, straight with the sanding block. You don't want to be at an angle because then you're going to sand at an angle. You want to be straight. And you want to try and put all the same amount of force along the entire distance of the fin. So we're going to sit here and back and forth and work the edge. I'm not trying to get this edge sanded. I'm trying to round this part right now. Remove a little bit of here and then get the taper at the end. So I'm just starting, and you can see the line is even with the sanding block. I'm going up and down, applying pressure at that end too. Try and get it even. And we're going to sand just a little bit. And you can see I'm sanding on my line. My line's starting to disappear, and I'm starting to get a little bit of a taper there. And then we can go this way a little bit. I actually prefer going this way because it gives me a lot more control. And I'm stopping to look, am I applying even pressure on both sides? So we're looking at both sides. And then we're going to go again. And when I think I'm about halfway, I'm going to flip the fin and do the other side. You can see it's very hard to keep it straight. You want to turn it, so that's why I say practice. And it's about even on both ends. Okay, you can see I'm getting sawdust down here. And this is a 120 grit that I'm using. So now let's do the other side a little bit here. So we're starting to flat and we're bringing it to an angle. And you can see it actually goes fairly quickly. And we're starting to get that taper there. I don't know if you can see it on cam. Let's see if I can bring that in a little closer for you there. So it goes a little fuzzy when I zoom here, but you can see it's starting to pick up that taper there. We're starting to get that knife edge that we want for our airfoil. So it's getting there. And you can see my line is starting to disappear on that side too. It's hard to keep it perfectly even on both sides, removing the same amount. It does tend to make for issues with mounting your fins on the rocket body, and we'll go over how to do that without having the fins be off at an angle when we get to the actual mounting part. And I'm tapering off my edge, and you can see I've got a fairly good airfoil going there, nice and sloping, not a sharp slope. So there we go. Now I can take and I can hit this lightly with some 220 just to take the roughness off. 220 on the other side. And again, I'm not worried about getting it super smooth because we are going to be putting, it's really hard for you to see the taper there, but there is a nice little taper going from the meat to the trailing edge. Now to get the top edge, the rounded edge, obviously we don't need it to be as sloping, as gentle, so we can go a little bit rougher. You can make it a long slope too. And we're just going to turn it a little bit quicker as we sand. And when we think we're about halfway there, again, we're checking top and bottom. We're going to flip it over and go the other way. Now, Tim Van Milligan at Apogee Components, I'm looking, have I flattened the top off? Has it got a knife edge on it yet? He has a method of making a little jig for sanding airfoils using balsa wood, which is a really cool method. I just haven't done that. I've always liked having doing my hands-on. I might come up with something of my own one of these days. Okay. Now we do have to still round that top edge off a little bit, but you can see we've got a little bit of a cut there on the edge. We'll take our 320 or 220 and we'll sand off the sides, get them. Again, I'm looking to see if it is equal on both sides, trying to get it as equal as possible, and then we'll go ahead and do that nice little round over on the top using the sandpaper. And I'm pretty happy with that. That side needs a little bit more. Wasn't quite centered. And that's the hard part with doing an airfoil, is getting it centered to where it's actually splitting the middle of the fin and not more on one side and less on the other, because that will cause some rotation in your flight possibly. Okay, now we just take and get our root edge a little bit, get our outer edge a little bit, and there we have it. So we've got all our fins ready for skinning now. Alright, so now we're set up to skin our fins. There's lots of different ways you can skin the fins. This is the method I prefer to use. We're going to use regular copy or typing paper, printer paper. We've got our fins. We've got some wood glue or white glue. I've got a little squeegee that I like to use to help me out. And of course, we're going to have some books to stack on top of the fins so they don't warp as they're drying. Again, I'm going to stress that. Make sure you have some books to stack on top of your fins while they are drying. Something else to take into account, if you have texture on your counter or on your workspace, you need to put something smooth over that, otherwise it will press into the paper that's on the fin, and it's all wet from white glue, so it'll pick up that texture into the thing. So a piece of plastic or something smooth and hard underneath it will help prevent that from happening. So I'm going to set up my books. 4 nice little books here to put on top of it. And move my ruler out of the way here. I got those over here ready to go. I'm going to move some stuff around so I've got space to do it. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to smear glue onto the fins. And then we're going to wipe off a large majority of that glue right back off without even giving it a chance to dry. The reason we're doing this is we don't need a whole lot of glue on the fin. We just need enough to hold the paper in place. That's all we want to do. And again, we saved our plastic bag so we can use it to do anything that we don't want sticking to our countertop. We just slid it open, and we've got a great thing to make sure we don't glue onto a book or onto mom's counter or your wife's counter or wherever you happen to be working at. And then we can open it up, and boom. Super glue doesn't stick to these bags as much as it would to this countertop or anything else. So there you go. Always save your bag for that purpose. Alright, so now we're going to glue the fins. So I'm going to take and put a dab of glue right across here. Just smear it on there. Okay, I have a wet towel and a dry towel standing by on my lap to wipe my fingers on so that I don't have glue all over everything. Okay, so now let's go ahead and smear this glue all around the fin. I normally use a white glue. I'm going to try the wood glue because it's a little bit stiffer of a glue. Now that that's on there, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to wipe a whole lot of it off. About 90% of it's going to come right back off. Now I have to do this part quickly. And then we're going to take the paper, lay it right on top, and push it on. I'm going to take my little squeegee and I'm going to make sure that that paper is applied on, pushed on all the way around. I'm going to take my finger. I'm going to kind of run the edges. This is going to give me a marking where I'm going to be cutting later on with the X-Acto knife or scissors. Okay, now I've got one side. You have to turn right around and do the other side quickly. Otherwise the fin will warp and it's kind of hard to get them to unwarp. So we put our glue on, smear it around. Make sure we got an even coat on everything. Smear off our excess. And we're going to put our paper on top. Push down all around, make sure it's adhered good. Give it some pressure with the squeegee. Again, the squeegee is just something that I use. I like it. We're going to take our finger, we're going to trace around the edge. Give us a nice defined edge. Okay, so now we can see our edges of our fin. And we need to get it underweight so it does not warp. So put it under the book and put the books on top of it. There's one. So we got 3 more to do. All right. These fins have been drying for about 12 to 24 hours. So it's time to go ahead and cut the excess paper off. This is where having the multiple different size scissors will pay off. I've got 4 different size scissors that I basically use. We can go ahead and do the big cuts, take off the major pieces of paper to make it easier to handle real quick. Yeah, be careful not to cut your balls of wood. these out of the way. And then we're going to take the other scissors, and we can use any size we like. I'm going to use these small ones because I can get right up against the edge of the balsa wood and I can feel what I'm doing. Very little cuts. And I can trim right alongside the balsa wood without too much difficulty. Go up the edge here. And then trim this edge here. And you don't have to be real close. I mean, you want to make sure that you're not trimming the wood by any means. But you want to try and get as much paper off as you can, and then just kind of nip at the little pieces on the root edge and the far edge. And get as much paper off as you can without causing damage to the paper that's on the fin itself. So once you trim all this, we'll end up taking and putting super glue on all edges except for the root edge. The root edge, we're going to sand off any excess there, and then we'll sand off any excess after the super glue or CA glue dries on the other edges. That's why we use it. It helps it to where we can sand it down and get that nice edge that we want. It also reinforces it and gives it more strength to take the cutting through the air. So we're finished trimming off all this excess paperwork, and we'll come back and do the CA glue. Alright, we've trimmed the fins, and this is where having the multiple scissors work really good. What I did is I trimmed off the large pieces of paper using larger scissors. Then I've got my little small scissors with the nice small blade there. And I use that to trim very closely to all the edges. After we did that, we had a little bit of paper on our trailing edge and our leading edge, or I mean our root edge and our tip edge. I'm not going to do anything to the tip edge because I still have to apply the super glue there. We aren't going to super glue this edge, so I'm going to sand it back and forth until I get it down to where I like this, and I'm going to check it for flat. So I'm going to take it and hold it against the body tube or against some other object that is flat, and I make sure that I have a flat matchup. It's not curved, bowed, or anything funny. Then after that, I'm going to take the sandpaper and I'm going to have a fuzz on this edge. I'm going to lightly going from the outside of the fin to the inside. I'm going to brush the edge lightly, and that's going to take that fuzz right off the top without sanding off the paper itself. I'm not too worried about showing a little bit of balsa wood by oversanding here because that's all going to be covered by fillet when I do the epoxy fix-it clay. So after we've got the fin to this configuration, the next thing we have to do is we have to seal those edges where the paper is on these edges. Now to do that properly, I need to use thin CA glue. And I'm going to do all the edges with this thin CA glue just to ensure that we have a good hard sealed edge that I can sand. And that will give me the ability to sand the edges without fuzzing the paper too much, so long as I don't sand aggressively. I need to poke a hole in my glue first. So let's just snip the tip off barely. That should be enough. Yep, that's just enough. I don't want to have a big hole. I just want to get just a little bit out. So we're going to take it, we're going to run it, and we're going to coat the edges with CA glue. So we'll go all the way around this one. Careful not to glue your fingers. Okay, be sure you get that very edge. You don't have to get far into the field. Just be sure you get that very edge. Then we're going to wipe off the excess. Now remember we saved that piece of plastic from the bag, we cut it open. This is where you want to have it. So now I can turn this over, and if I put it down on the plastic, it might stick a little bit to the plastic, but it'll peel off easily. Now we're going to do the other side. And again, I'm not doing the root edge, I'm doing the leading, the tip edge, and the trailing edge. going to cover that. We're just going to kind of paint the glue on the edge. And once we have good coverage, I'm going to turn around and wipe it off. And we'll go ahead and set that down to dry. And we'll just keep doing this for all the fins. And again, what this is going to give me the ability to do is to be able to sand these edges. So I'm going to finish the fins up, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to sand the edges. Alright, so we've done the glue on all the fins. We'll go ahead and take them off the plastic. It's dried enough that we don't have to worry about it sticking to anything. And we're going to go ahead and start sanding them. So we've got a lot of material on the end that we have to sand off. And we can just take that and sand that by putting it flat down on something and going back and forth. A few strokes, then look at it, see how it looks. And then a few strokes again. And then take a look. Almost there. Okay, now to get this end part, we're just going to go ahead again and take and go this way across the end. And we're going to look at it, and it takes that burr right off. Again, on the other side, same thing. And we'll look at it really careful. I've got a little bit of paper right here on the end I still need to get. So, probably not holding the fin as flat as I should on the paper. So that takes care of that piece there. Yep, looks good now. So now we're going to take and just lightly do the end again. And same thing on the other side. Check for burrs, and it looks good. Alright, now we have all the other edges, and you won't notice it as much until you put the glue on, but there's bumps and ridges all the way around the edge. Let me find one that has a significant one. Here's one. Let's see if I can zoom in and you can see it better. So what we have right here at the top, there's a little bit of carryover, and it's kind of out of focus here, but this little bit of carryover, and that's paper that is extended out past the fin part. We want to sand that off for appearance reasons. When you put paint on it, it really kind of magnifies it. So what we're going to do is we're going to round it over, and we can use the sanding block, or if you've been doing it for a while, you can free do it by hand. And we're just going to go across the top and kind of do a sweeping rounding motion. If you have to, you can follow the edge. Just remember, you don't want to go too crazy, because if you get too much off, you can't put it back on. So, and I'm carefully watching how much I'm taking off the whole time I'm sanding. And I'm just taking that paper off. That's all I'm trying to do, is get that little piece of paper off. And if we hadn't put the super glue on it, we wouldn't be able to do this at all. Super glue also strengthens the bond of the paper to the wood right there at the edge, where is the weakest part of it. And you can see that little flag right there on the top is starting to come off. That means we've just about got it. That piece is just about ready to come off. There it goes, it fell off. So I got a little bit of an edge left to take off up there. And you got to constantly watch that you're not taking too much off, because it will show up when you do the paint. Got a little bit of an edge right there. And that's why it's important to come at it from both sides. And it's pretty much gone there. Okay, I'm happy with that appearance. It looks pretty good there. So we're going to do that with all the fins now. We're just going to sit here and sand all these edges off, this excess paper. And again, this is why we use the super glue, and it strengthens it. Now, to give you an idea how much it strengthened it, here's the fin papered, here's the fin unpapered. You can see the amount of flex that that actually gives versus that. Almost no flex. I'm going to go straight up and down and see how you can tell. So there's almost no flex, whereas with this, there's a whole bunch of flex. Rotational. Here's rotation on this one. almost nothing. So it makes it a lot stronger of a fin.